Hey guys, I just wanted to talk to you for just a few minutes about learning targets. You guys have been working so hard on your documents for the compendium, and learning targets are something that's fairly new for some of us, myself included, but we have been talking about learning targets a lot in our CCRS quarterly meetings. And so I thought maybe I could just share a few things that might help you moving forward as we continue to work with the compendium in writing learning targets. One of the first things, and I'm going to read a couple of these things directly from some CCRS documents just because it's one of the best places that I've found to access information. In looking at standards versus learning targets, the standard answers the question, where am I going with my learning? So what's the endpoint? It's the performance expectation. Whereas the learning target is going to show the students the path that they need to take to get there. So it's a much smaller fragment of a larger instructional sequence. And so maybe keeping that in mind will help a little bit in terms of narrowing down the scope a little bit in terms of learning targets. Also, we need to make sure that we're writing learning targets in student-friendly language. One of the things, this book, Ron Berger, Leaders of Their Own Learning. I have not finished the book, but there is one chapter, it's actually the chapter directly behind the introduction that talks about learning targets. And Berger explains a lot about targets. And one of the things that was the most profound in terms of reading for me was that this writing of learning targets should really take the emphasis off of what the teacher is teaching to what the student is responsible for learning. So it really takes that accountability from being so much on the teacher to much more on the student. So keep that in mind. Just a couple of other things. Learning targets, we should be thinking of these as something that we are writing that are very good initially, but keeping in mind that one of the big things about learning targets is that they should be continually modified and changed based on student experiences in the classroom. So if we can provide really nice frameworks for these targets, then I think that we really help the teachers have a foundation to start with, and then they can modify those in whatever way best meets the needs in their own classroom. Let's see. There is a document that we shared in our CCRS quarterly meetings that I do want to share with you guys. I'm going to actually put it into the working documents folder, and it is an instructional sequencing map that's based on learning targets. So it takes kind of I know a lot of you guys like to look at things kind of in a structural manner, and in terms of breaking it down in terms of what the experiences are, what's the assessment going to be, how will we identify evidence of student learning. And I'll put that in there because that may be helpful for you as you move forward in terms of as we move forward in terms of making sure that those learning experiences in whole will ultimately meet the objective, and then of course making sure that the learning targets match the learning experiences also. So that's another thing. I will put that in into the working documents folder this morning in a little bit. Let's see. Again, learning targets should be written in student-friendly language. We have, I think, done a decent job of getting these into pretty good form, but we just need to make sure that we're keeping that in mind. This is not a teacher document like a curriculum guide or something like that. This is for the students and something that the students actually should have the opportunity to change. And then just a couple of other things, because I don't want to keep you any longer than I have to. I did want to just read this thing from Berger. It said, rather than the teacher taking on all of the responsibility for meeting a lesson's objectives, learning targets that are written in student-friendly language and frequently reflected on transfer the ownership for meeting objectives from the teacher to the student. And so we want to put it put this back to the students in terms of them being responsible for the learning. And the other thing is, and I think that you'll find this to be true as you're writing these, and Berger talks about this in his book also, is that in order to write learning targets that are effective and really good and sequenced properly, you really, as a teacher, have to have a big picture view of what it is that you're going to be covering over time. And so ultimately, here's the good news, this is going to make you better prepared. And so just keep up the good fight. You guys keep doing what you're doing. If there's anything that I can help you do, again, I do not consider myself to be the expert on learning targets or anything else for that matter. But if I can help you in some way, we have been fortunate enough to be part of facilitator training and leading these sessions for the last couple of years. And I think maybe I could help in some way. But again, keep up the awesome work that y'all are doing. And I look forward to seeing y'all in a couple weeks.